Well, let me introduce myself. I think most of you, if not everyone, knows me, but anyway, I'm Jeremy Smith. I'm chairman of the Parish Council, Wittersham Parish Council. Let me introduce one or two others at this stage, and I'll come back to more later. We've got Councillor Mike Hill here, who is our councillor on the County Council. I'll tell you more about him later. And Councillor Mick Burgess, who is our councillor on the Borough Council. This is Yvonne, who is the clerk of the Parish Council, Yvonne Osborne. I didn't give you a councillor appellation.
I thought you did.
Oh, did I? Oh, well, there you are. That's how bad my memory's getting. It's an age thing. Now, our programme tonight will shortly begin with the annual parish meeting. That's a statutory event for all parish councils in England, where we have to hold an open session at this time of year for residents to hear from their parish council, make any points they want to, and ask questions. Following that, we'll hold our ordinary monthly parish council meeting. People are welcome to stay and listen at that meeting if they want to, including the public session, but it's not obligatory. So it's up to people whether they stay. We'll have a short break between the two meetings. Now, before we get into those two sessions, my first task tonight is to make a presentation. The High Sheriff of Kent and Kent County Council make a number of awards each year to those who've given outstanding service to their communities. Tonight I have special pleasure in making a presentation which I'm afraid is rather delayed by circumstances while we were trying to get an opportunity to do it. But it's to somebody whose service to Wittersham during the difficult months of the pandemic and the lockdowns was highly visible and appreciated by all, and that is to Dax Patel. Now, I can tell you that the citation on the certificate reads, Dax and his family have spared no effort during the COVID-19 crisis to find and supply the village with all its needs and introduced free delivery to all those sheltering. So, Dax, here is the certificate for you.
Thank you.
And if Yvonne can then take, we better not stand in front of the wine. Yvonne will take a picture.
Smile, Dax.
He's hoping.
Thank you.
He's hoping someone's looking after the shop.
Yeah. Thank you.
We've got a packet for you to put in afterwards if you need to get it home. Let me just add on that those with long memories will recall that the then High Sheriff of Kent, Mr. William Alexander, visited Wittersham on the 14th of April 2015 to open what was at the time Dax's new shop.
Yeah.
So this is a very apt recognition of the huge place his shop has found in the life of our village in these intervening years. And it's about 10 years old now, very nearly?
Nearly there, yeah.
Nearly 10, yeah. Excellent, so congratulations. And I should also add that we always ask people if they want to nominate someone for these awards, and I think it would be fair to say we had more nominations for Dax than anybody else. I don't mean that year, I mean ever. Very, very strong. Right, now next, a notice. There will be a council election on Thursday the 4th of May for councillors in Ashford Borough Council and potentially for Wittersham Parish Council too, depending on how many persons submit nomination papers for election. Voting will be here, I think in this room as usual, but please remember this will be the first election when it will be mandatory for anyone casting a vote to bring with them a photo ID. That's the first time, so if you come without a photo ID you won't be able to vote. And let me say, the usual white card that you get through the post, that's not sufficient. It has to be a photo ID, passport, driving licence, bus pass. They're the three that I remember that are acceptable. KCC, Kent County Council, is not up for election this year. It's Ashford and Wittersham. So now back to the annual parish meeting itself. You've got an agenda, I hope, on your, well, some of you had one on the chair. We didn't expect such a good turnout, and it's great to see you all again, because we've been on rather thin rations for the last few years. This will be an opportunity to hear the usual reports, which cover the period from April 22 until now. And we'll start with Councillor Mike Hill. Now, Mike is our long-standing county councillor. He represents Tenterden and half a dozen of the surrounding villages like this. He's also one of 10 members of the KCC Cabinet, and he's portfolio holder for community and regulatory services, which includes libraries, the registrars, culture, public protection and police liaison, trading standards, countryside matters and so on. Very wide brief. So Mike, off you go, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman, and thank you very much for inviting me again this year. I have continued to hold that cabinet post throughout the year, which has been enormously interesting and rewarding. It has been a most turbulent and testing year for us in the County Council. We saw the final throes of the pandemic, major war in Europe, the first time since 1945, for a resultant energy crisis, followed by a rampant inflation and financial meltdown, leading to the cost of living crisis we're currently facing. Add to that political instability on both sides of the Atlantic, and I think we had the perfect storm. And it's really affected many of the local organisations of these events. We started the year on an optimistic note, may I say. We had the pandemic seemed to be in retreat at long last, and we will focus our emphasis on the recovery of the County Council services and help to businesses still struggling with the effects of the pandemic. And we've made good progress during the year. The library visitors figures are now increased by 35% on last year, and we are at 72% of pre-COVID levels. Electronic issues remain high, and the physical issues are 87% of the pre-COVID levels. Death registrations sadly remain high, but on a more happier note, our wedding ceremonies have never been busier. There's a little bit of a backlog, I think, from the effects of the pandemic and the lockdown. And I was actually at a registrar today, and they said, well, actually, what we're getting now, the number of people got engaged during the pandemic, and now finally come to make it all legal. So we are still very busy on the wedding side. Our country parks and public rights of way have been seen greatly increased usage, and much of this has been maintained. They were a real lifeline during the pandemic, to allowing people to get out and get some fresh air and exercise. They are recovering very well, helped by significant government COVID recovery funding, and I'm delighted the country parks have retained all their 8 green flags, showing what a good place they are. Our capital programme saw the completion last year of the Amelia Cultural Hub in Tunbridge Wells and the Creative Quarter in Ashford. And these projects, which were delivered with great difficulty in the teeth of the pandemic, will significantly improve the cultural offer in the county. I have to mention highways and potholes. I won't get away with not mentioning that. And you're all well aware that the severe winter conditions before Christmas have led to a 5-fold increase in pothole reports, which is more reports we've ever had before. And though some more lasting repairs cannot be made during winter conditions, nevertheless, work is underway to address the damage within the severe financial constraints we're still facing. Ukraine, 1 year on, the Kent has responded magnificently to the humanitarian crisis, with 3,200 Ukrainians having been hosted in the county, I think more than any other county. And the County Council has played a vital role in supporting this, and we continue to do so. Given the uncertainty of the course of the war, we are working with our district and borough colleagues to see a longer-term housing options for our Ukrainian guests. In addition, before Christmas, we brought forward a package of enhanced support for hosts, moving ahead of many other counties in this field. We're all well aware of the persistent problems around Dover, and we recently received welcome news of a successful £45 million bid for the government's Levelling Up Fund to improve traffic flow to the EU through the Port of Dover, Special enhancements will include site reconfiguration, additional border control points, and a new exit route, which will not only have a positive impact on Dover and the surrounding area, but on Kent and its economy as a whole. This time of year is budget time, as we're all well aware, and the budget this year includes a 5% increase in council tax to protect and prioritise vital services to the most vulnerable. And this was approved by the full council on the 9th of February. And 2% of that rise in council tax is ring-fenced to adult social care. The budget takes account of a £217 million increase in the cost of our services, fuelled by inflation and market conditions, along with the need to save £55 million over the next financial year to balance the budget. And can I just say that this budget is set in the context of extraordinary global and national economic circumstances which have had a significant effect on public spending and borrowing and have hugely impacted local spending. We've had to make savings in areas we've never dreamed of touching before, I'm afraid, and there are many sensitive areas we've had to make cuts in order to balance our budget. But as you're aware, we are required legally to balance our budget. We can't do what the government do and borrow money, and therefore we have to balance, we have to square our budget every year. If we don't, we will be served with what the government called a Section 114 notice, which means that we've abandoned the county council, the commissioners coming to run it. Well, that's a disaster. It's happened to a few councils already this year, and it would mean that not only that we'd lose control of our council, but also the commissioners would come in and they'd stop everything in sight. They'd stop every discretionary service in sight, because that's what their remit is. We've got to balance, we've got to square, make the books balance at all costs. So we're determined to avoid that, but it has required us to make savings where we have not been dreamt of doing so before, sadly. The latest challenge we all face are the huge cost of living pressures owing to soaring inflation and energy costs. Now, the County Council now has an extended package of investment that will help those most in need to access additional support, including help with energy and water costs and free school meal vouchers for eligible families. And we continue to work with partners to develop a comprehensive and nationally commended financial hardship programme to support people struggling with heating their homes and feeding their families throughout the coming months. The Kent Together approach, which was rapidly developed and adopted during the pandemic, sees partners across the county coming together in a coordinated effort to deliver the right support in the right places. This strong and efficient network includes the borough and parish councils, community and voluntary groups, the emergency services and the NHS will remain a vital, important life helpline and support service throughout the winter and cost of living crisis. Now, a number of services in the County Council are already providing support where they can to help people stay safe and well this winter. Our libraries provide open and warm spaces that offer a range of free services, including books, activities, ICT, Wi-Fi, e-books, e-magazines, e-newspapers. Our public protection scheme team is dealing with a steady increase in scams aiming to exploit the cost of living crisis. It's one of the saddest things to hear the stories of people who have been scammed out of their hard-earned earnings by really unscrupulous criminals. They're targeting heating cost reductions, government financial support grants, fake employment opportunities, cheap food, and there's financial disasters from those who are caught out. Our community warden service provides an essential lifeline for many of our most vulnerable residents. Our wardens are equipped with the knowledge of benefits available to help residents across support and can identify residents in hardship who will be eligible for council tax reduction. And they're also identifying and engaging with homeless individuals, helping them into accommodation. Alongside our community services, our social care services will be working with vulnerable families, many of whom will be at heightened risk of struggling with the cost of living crisis. Well, colleagues, that was a very difficult year we had, and I must say that the forecast ahead doesn't look great. We're still going to have the war in Ukraine for a long time yet, I guess, and the cost and the increased costs and the living problems that brings with it. And we're also, of course, going to have some political electoral turmoil over the next couple of years. We've got the borough council elections this year, a general election next year, and the county council election in 25. So it's going to be exciting times ahead. I've been very pleased to represent you for the last year. I've got another 2 years before our next election, and I look forward to representing Wittersham and surrounding area over the next 2 years. Thank you very much. questions, very happy to answer them.
Alan's got one.
Sorry, Mike, I've got one question. The library van that comes into the village,
Yes.
at the moment parks on Forge Meads. It used to park in the pub car park, but somebody asked for it to be parked on Forge Meads. The only reason I'm asking is that sometimes it can't get on there because of other cars, and it's having to park on the main street. The other day I nipped into the van, spoke to the librarian, and she said she's more than happy for it to go into the car park where it used to go, and Kevin, the landlord from the pub, was quite happy to give her a cup of tea and for her to use the toilet. The people that were in there would be more than happy, the people that were in there at the time, I spoke to them, they were more than happy for it to go into the car park. I would ask that it's relocated again onto the car park at the Swan.
Yeah, well, that sounds very simple. Yes, I will take it back straight away.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Alan was next, and then we'll go to John.
Michael, thank you.
Yeah.
I was taken aside the other day by somebody who quite recently moved to Kent, and they were distracted by the fact that the Ashford International remained mothballed, and the information they've been given is because of there was difficulty with border checks post-Brexit and so on. Does your committee have any influence over the reopening of the Ashford Hub?
Well, it means it's a disaster, and we have no powers. We do all we can to lobby as much as we can. It's a commercial decision by Eurostar, purely a commercial decision affecting both sides of the border. They've got the same problem with Peter they say they can't, economically they can't afford to make these stops at either side. I don't understand why myself. I can't see why having a couple of extra stops going to add much to their expenses. But that is their commercial decision, and we can't shift them. And I think it's awful.
There's nothing you could think of that we could do. Getting hysterical doesn't make any difference.
I don't think so. The MPs tried, Damien's tried, everyone's tried.
Yeah.
There's currently a petition that people could sign that may have some influence on the government if you get to a certain number. There's definitely a current petition to get Ashford reopened, so that might be worth signing it. At least it would then be debated in Parliament.
Good thought. I think that they have said that the problem is that since Brexit they closed about the pandemic, but since Brexit they have to have customs there now, which they didn't used to have, and I presume that they get charged for it. So that's obviously an added cost, but I'm not right up to speed with it. That's what I've seen in the paper. So John, you were next.
Yes, my letter. I've recently spent a few weeks away from the country and came back, and if you like, my vision was refreshed, if you like, about how ghastly the litter situation is in this country. Now, I believe KCC have responsibility for trunk roads. I know the responsibility really lies with those who chuck bottles out of the window and that sort of thing, but it does leave a terrible impression. And obviously the A2 down into Dover, where all those lorry drivers park, or the A20, it's an expensive operation, but I do feel that the image of the country, let alone the county, suffers hugely from the impression given to people arriving in this country. I know within Wittersham we ourselves do some litter clearing down Acton Lane, others do litter clearing in the village, but just biking along the main road as I was the other day, between Acton Lane and the centre of the village, although you can't see it because of the ditch on the side, it's absolutely rammed with Red Bull, lager cans, that sort of thing. There's an educational job to be done, but there's also a reasonable litter clearance to be done, or else a fine should be imposed on the lorry drivers who clearly litter when they park alongside. I don't know what the answer is, but I feel it's something that the image of it hits you in the face when you arrive back.
Yeah. Well, strategic roads such as the A2 and the A20 are national highways, and they're not a county issue. As are the motorways, of course. And they're some of the worst we ever see, actually. Especially, I guess the motorways are awful. And I think it's a shared responsibility, Mick, isn't it, between the borough council and the county council in terms of the roads, and then whether you have to take that up.
This is quite true. In fact, I've got down on my notes here that there's been a new contract signed. You'll be pleased to know after what I said at the last Parish Council meeting, I believe, that there was possible even strike action threatened. This has all been cleared, and there's a new contract for 8 years, and it's with the same contractors as we've got now. Now those contractors, I've seen them out with their smaller vehicles picking up litter quite frequently, but of course you need an army to keep up with everything. But it's quite right, it is a shared responsibility, and the main roads, the ones that Highways England maintain and clear, I mean, they are the ones that really, the ones I think that John was speaking about, really to show the county a bit of a mess, or as a good thing if it's nice and clean, because most of the people visiting from Europe anyway come up those roads to get to London and elsewhere in the country. But I mean, we're all keen on keeping the glitter down. If only there was some way we could do it. And I mean, I don't know what the answer is to stop people. Well, we could close all the McDonald's, I suppose, but that wouldn't be very popular, would it? Well, Mark, speaking from experience there, where I live now, we could keep them in business, you know, with empties going back, to be honest. But I won't harp on the subject too much. But I do totally agree with what Mike has said.
Good.
Can I just, I'm very sorry, Mike, to raise the question of potholes again, because I know you so enjoy talking about them every year. I've heard you mention them, but we're all used to it. We've all got used to potholes, and we're learning to live with it. And until there's an enormous nationwide effort with the chancellors giving money, we're not going to get it. But what always often worries me is how poorly they are repaired.
Yes.
Even I, who knows nothing about mechanics of what you look at it and you think, my goodness me, I wouldn't have passed that for 1 second if I had been organising it. And I just wonder what organisation, if there is one, goes and inspects and keeps these firms who are going out and doing things. Sometimes it's very short notice, I accept that entirely, but it is not good, a lot of it.
No, well, I mean, it's a matter of considerable concern to all kind of councils, as I'm sure you realise.
Yes,
it is for a lot of people, inevitably. I mean, I think that if we talk to the highways engineers who are involved, they point out the problems of doing quick repairs when the weather's bad, and it's quite difficult to actually make your mix adhere to the surface. But I don't disagree with you. I mean, where I live in Tenton, we've got Beacon Oak Road runs alongside there, and they were repaired in a few hours. It's washed out again into the sides. And I brought this attention to the cabinet member, and they're doing something about it now, that particular road. But I mean, I think all I can say is that I do all I can to encourage them to do it. Life will get a lot easier when the weather improves, and we get a better service to work on. I mean, the real problem is that a lot of the road structure it needs total resurfacing, and we're patching, and then that inevitably is difficult. The trouble is that the amount of money required nationally to do the repairs that are needed in all the roads is enormous. We're talking about billions and billions of pounds. So we just haven't got it now. And of course we're worse off now this year than we've ever been. We've had to reduce the amount of money spent on roads. We've got no option. We've got to balance our budget. And therefore life is very difficult. I've quite a lot of sympathy with the highways, but I don't disagree with you that I think that some of the contractors need closer supervision, and I've already said so to the cabinet member, and hopefully we'll see some improvement.
Thank you very much.
More questions? Yes, Miriam.
Yes, Mike, you spoke about the importance of community wardens, especially in these difficult times. It's unfortunate that we don't have one here in Wittersham anymore. I mean, whose responsibility would it be to appoint a new warden for the village?
Well, it's mine.
Right.
But I'm afraid Miriam was a butler. But you know, we are very stretched very thin across the county. We've had to take some reductions in the community warden budget next year because I've got to make savings somewhere, and so we are a bit thin. So I wouldn't promise anything, but I know we have worked with you in the past to try to over wardens, and I will do what I can. I have an ambition to increase the number of wardens. They were a service that I invented 20 years ago, and I'm really proud of what they've managed to achieve. And it's annoying for me that we've not managed to keep up the numbers. I think we need 100. We've currently got 70, and we may go down a bit on that now. But we don't have as many as we should have, and that's why you haven't got a warden. I mean, I have been lobbied by your chairman many times about this, and I do what I can when I can.
I think just to add to that, Miriam, entirely on top of what Mike has said, we have one of his paid wardens, but she covers Tenterden and a lot of villages. She's not here tonight. We then did find a volunteer warden locally, which was Lee Phelan, who did a great job for probably about 5 years or something. But she decided to stop doing that about a year ago, I guess, which we talked at the time. And to be honest, in terms of finding a volunteer to do it in the village, because it's very good if we've got feet on the ground from someone who lives here rather than, covers Tenterden really and everywhere else. It's a matter of finding one, and I will talk about trying to find volunteers in general later, but this is one of them. And if anyone's willing to be a volunteer community warden, which is an unpaid position, they're provided with the equipment and training, but it's unpaid for some hours a week, that would be very much appreciated. Because I think you make a good point. Having a warden in the village was very good. It's partly that we have one here, it's partly that we then have someone on the end of the piece of string that can go up the channels, to the one in Tenterden, to the supervisor who covers a borough or two boroughs I think, and so on. It gives us that link, which otherwise we don't have. So a volunteer community warden to replace Lee would be very valuable. Very.
I think then you just need to get that message out to the village, renew the message of the importance in these difficult times of that person, and hopefully somebody might come forward.
I think all of that is true.
Volunteers.
Yeah, all of that is true, and everything is just gradually getting back into people's minds. I think after the end of COVID is still dragging on into a long tail. There's lots of things people have just got out of the habits of.
Yeah,
but
I think it does need a special effort.
Yeah,
reinstate things. We've lost a lot of things due to COVID. And
absolutely,
it's a
totally.
concerted effort to try and rebuild.
Totally, indeed. Any more? Now, the clerk already pointed out to me that I skipped over in the agenda when I started with Mike. Any apologies? Have you had any?
Yes, Councillor Brown, she's away.
And
our tree warden who is away as well.
which is
Chris Teasdale.
Chris Teasdale. Okay. Any other apologies that people know of? No. And we also didn't confirm the minutes of the last annual parish meeting, which was on the 12th of April last year. Some of you will have seen them because you put some notes
I've got
out.
3 out, put the 2 on, so Miriam's got one and I've just got one in the house.
Does anybody have any comments on them? It's always difficult because they are quite long, I'm afraid.
Yes, we're 5 pages.
Beautifully written, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Beautifully written. I know that, that's why I'm doing it.
Are people happy if I sign them as a correct
Yes.
record of last time? Roger is proposing. Anybody? And Alf is seconding. Everybody happy?
Yep.
No unhappiness. Good. Thank you very much. Right, that's got us back on proper track. So now if I introduce Councillor Mick Burgess, who will give his report. Mick's a very long-standing borough councillor. He might tell you how long-standing, but it's very long. For the Isle of Oxley. That's the name of his ward. It's actually Canardington, Appledore, Stone, Wittersham. Did I miss anything? No, that's it.
Troy, Ebony, if you like.
Yeah, Ebony and part of Stone. He also chairs Ashford's Planning Committee, which is an onerous job because the reports that go to it are, 50 pages is a good one, a short one. He sits on innumerable outside bodies, He's announced, however, that he will not be standing for re-election this May, and so this is almost, I think, his last time with us as ward councillor in Wittersham. Mick, your report.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll start off standing anyway. Good evening all. Ashford's problems are a microcosm of Kent County Council's problems. So really to go through all that jargon again would be exceedingly boring, I think. The one that was mentioned earlier by John was about the refuse collection. Well, he mentioned the litter, but I mean, litter is refuse. This has all been sorted out, and an 8-year contract signed. The threat of the strike that was around has been overcome with necessary wage agreements, and it will be continued by the same contractors, as I said, who've been doing it. So there should be a fairly smooth changeover, which is going to happen, I believe, in July. So just be aware of that. One item that is definitely Borough Council is the council tax rise, which will be on an average of £5 a month for the year 2023-24. This will still leave Ashford Borough's section of the overall council tax one of the lowest in the county, which is something they're quite proud of. We're quite proud of. As has already been pointed out, this has been my last Borough Council annual report to this Parish Council, as I'm not standing for re-election in May. I do hope that members of this Parish Council do not follow my decision, and that they will be standing for re-election. I've said that very loudly. So I think you've got a good Parish Council here, and I mean that. I've got evidence of others, but I don't give it, of course. I could say over the years that I've been Borough Council, there's been a few changes. In fact, there have been some fairly large changes. The ward has doubled in size since I was originally elected. Originally, when elected, it was just Wittersham and Stone. And then I think it was in 2003, they added Carnarvon and Appledore, which was another ward at the time. And I got the name changed from Wittersham Ward to the Isle of Oxley Ward, which I thought was more descriptive. It took 4 years to achieve this. That's nothing. The system of administration has changed from the committee system that was in progress when I was first elected to what is now called the cabinet system, which is similar to the administration of the central government. The change of administration brought about some substantial changes in social housing and in local planning, both subjects which are of major interest to the rural community. Central government has since made several changes to both of these departments as these departments be managed. The planning department is still struggling to catch up with deciding applications. Delays caused by Stodmaster migration. This is the EU standard which affects any dwelling application within the River Stour catchment area. This is not within the EU or River Stour catchment area. I think your chairman here can explain the mitigation of Stodmaster better than I am, as he's previously I've had a bit more to do with that sort of thing. So up to you, chairman, on that. And delays caused by the rush after the pandemic, which Mike's already mentioned. Also the ever-changing of the NPPF, the National Planning Programme Forecast, and various other requirements from central government on housing numbers. The local plan is due for revision in the coming year, including a call for further sites. Something to look out for.
Joy.
And I totally agree with Mike that I've got a little note I made here that ABC are working hard with KCC over the Ukraine package and housing of the immigrants from Ukraine in particular. In previous years I've told you of outside bodies which I represented on the Borough Council, which still do, and the majority of which are based on the Romney Marsh. Hence the title I obtained from a previous leader of the Borough Council, the late Councillor Peter Wood, which I don't suppose too many of you knew, which was lead member for the Romney Marsh. I believe I still hold this title, and it is now only honorary, but not sure whether it will be transferred to another. So that's something to be seen. Of the outside bodies, the first I'll mention briefly, because it may be mentioned further, is the Rural Kent, which has been liquidated and no longer exists. The second one is the Romney Marsh Partnership. The Borough Council no longer supports, but I am still invited to attend. And Folkestone and Hythe District Council and Rother District Council are also members, so it covers quite a broad spectrum of the Romney Marsh itself. Kent Downs and Marsh's leader programme finished a year or so back, about halfway through the pandemic, I believe. It's supporting rural businesses with a grant that was from the EU, but unfortunately when Brexit came along that got stopped. There's another one which has now finished its job. It's called the Fifth Continent Landscape Partnership Scheme Project Board. Yeah, I know. It was a part of the Kent Wildlife Trust project involving the Romney Marsh, and after 5 years has now completed its task, results of which can be seen online and in the Marsh churches. There's a lot of work there. The reason why it's called the Fifth Continent is from the Inglesby Legends, 1837. Recognised the importance of the Romney Marsh as a fifth continent through the statement, the world, according to the best geographers, is divided into Europe, Asia, Africa, America, and Romney Marsh. So I think that's fairly well known. I dare say the bookbacks here know that. The Marsh Million Approval Board has finished its work in supporting businesses. That was £1 million put together by 500,000 of Magnots, which is Dungeon SA, when it was running. Well, actually, they still own it, but that's another story for another day. 400k was put up by KCC, and 50k was put up by Ashford Borough Council and Shetway Borough Council, Shetway District Council, as it was at that time, now called Folkestone and Hythe District Council. Marshalling Rail Steering Group, which is very interesting, a part of the Southern Community Rail Partnership that's been successful in supporting the local enterprises, of which Appledore Station is a good example. I don't know if you see Appledore Station, you'll find it's pretty smart there. Yeah. And there's a nice working group down in Appledore, not only for Appledore people, but keeping it that way. And I'm hopeful that when I'm no longer Borough Councillor, I might have enough time to go and pat a few people on the shoulder over at Ham Street and get them to keep that one going as well. You know. The Dungeness Nuclear Power Station's site stakeholders group keeps a watchful eye and experience on the decommissioning of both the power stations now. It's hoped that the sites will be used to house SMRs, small modular reactors, as soon as they become available. They are available, and in fact the idea is really getting some feet now. And I think within a few years there may be time that we'll have some more power coming from that area into the existing grid that's there and the switch house. You know, I mean, it's all makes sense. The UK Power Network's Critical Friends panel has been closed to my knowledge. They haven't emailed me lately. Another very important one is the River Stour International Internal Drainage Board and the Romney Marsh Area Internal Drainage Boards. Those that have worked and lived on the marsh will understand them. They're both very busy in their respective areas due to the extremely vulnerable weather patterns, variable weather patterns we've experienced lately. With the River Stour Board, they have the added complication with the addition of beavers to the area. While the Romney Marsh Area Board is having to deal with the extra cost of running their many electric pumps. The beavers are now protected as well. These are not the sort that fell trees. These are the sort that burrow holes through the riverbanks so it floods the field next door. Of these various organisations which are still operating, they may not necessarily be as attended by my successor, but I hope the interest will remain. and mine will be. I think I've said enough. I'll take any questions on any subject I might have mentioned or on the forthcoming agenda as well, and we won't have to speak again there. Thank you, gentlemen.
I said that the Mick sits on innumerable outside bodies, but I didn't realise how innumerable or how long the titles were. Thank you very much. Questions and points for Mick? Yes, Kate.
When the Weald of Kent is created, the new boundaries for an MP, will we have a ward councillor who answers to the Weald of Kent?
You're talking about it. Can I answer?
Yes.
You're talking about an MP constituency when you say
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's kind of the other way around, that the MP has to take notice of everything that's happening.
yeah.
But how do you see
This ward won't be in the Weald of Kent.
Will it not?
Not, well, it'll be in the Weald of Kent constituency, but it'll still be governed by Ashford Borough Council. It's not
That's
changing
for
any of
sure.
those boundaries. Oh yeah, they're not changing any of those boundaries. I mean, if we did go anywhere, we'd probably end up in East Sussex, but that's beside the point.
So some of the affiliations which you've had, Mick, with the Rumney Marsh will still be important to this?
Oh yes, yes
particular-
indeed, yes. This is the Weald, which is, whereas you know, the plateau above the Romney Marsh, like, you know, when you look at the geography of things.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether this is occasion to go into geography.
Well, it
No, it's a
could be,
good,
because
a
that's
good question,
the
and
whole
quite,
point, isn't
I
it?
quite understand that a lot of people get quite concerned when they see all these boundaries being changed, but there's basically three sets of boundaries. You've got the MP constituency, you've got Mike's Kent boundary, you know, his area, and then you've got the borough, and then actually there's a fourth one, which is the parishes.
I think the only thing that's changed is the MP.
Mm.
The MP constituency changes, but the county stays the same, borough stays the same,
Absolutely,
parish stays the
absolutely.
same.
And that
Okay.
MP has to go to, I don't know how many council meetings, because it's a representation across great numbers, isn't it?
Yeah.
Parishes and wards.
We've actually been fortunate up till now because unlike most MP constituencies, Damien Green's boundary and Ashford's boundary were almost the same. They weren't quite. What has happened, there's a boundary commission for Parliament, which is totally different to the boundary commission for local government, two quite separate. And because the numbers, the MPs all have to have electorates that are within a fairly narrow margin of the same right across the country. You can't have one MP with twice as many constituents as another, because that's regarded as unfair. They have to be within about 5% each way, apart from special cases like the Isle of Wight, which is obviously very tricky. And what's happened is, because of the growing population in Kent all the time, Kent has been awarded an extra MP. And as soon as you say, oh, there's an extra one, now where do we fit it in? And especially because we've got the sea alongside, all the boundaries start getting tweaked a bit. And they've done various approaches to it, and the one they've settled on, subject to it being voted, I don't think it's voted through in Parliament yet, but the one we expect is that we'll be in the Weald, whatever they call it, and Ashford Town will actually get attached to one that goes out eastwards towards Folkestone. And the idea of Ashford and the constituency being more or less the same has been done in. But if you went to other towns and cities through the country, or towns anyway, you would find that Ashford was actually pretty lucky before. Quite unusual to have them almost the same. So we will simply,
So
we'll
shall we
have,
embrace this change?
yeah, we will have whoever the new MP is for our constituency, if it all goes through, who will also cover part of Tunbridge Wells. And part of Maidstone, yes.
The Faversham.
And he will therefore have to deal with several borough or district councils.
Sure.
But from our point of view, we'll still have one MP. It's just that when I talk to colleagues in other parts of Ashford, they'll be dealing with a different MP, and that makes it a bit more difficult. You know, I'm just in the middle of writing to Damien Green about an issue on the Levelling Up Bill, which comes from the Ashford Committee of the Kent Association of Local Councils, which I chair, and they asked me to write to Damien, which I've done, and I can do that on behalf of all of us in Ashford. But if this was in another year or two's time, I would have to write to 2 of them, let's say, or 3 of them. It's just the way it'll be. Anything for Mick, apart from Kate's that we've just done?
Well, can I just add on to
Yeah,
that,
please.
that hearing his long list of affiliations, I'm really thrilled that he has done the job he's done, because he blends Wittersham into the Romney Marsh and not Dash.
Quite right.
We're in the 5th continent then, or the
Yeah.
6th, was it?
Let's say that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mick.
Pleasure.
Now, we had a little bit of a mention earlier about the community warden, Joe Voss, who I think is still community warden.
Yes, she is, yes,
Yes,
yeah, that's
but as you can see, she's not here.
We're on maternity leave.
Okay, right, I remember she had maternity leave before, so we've got another one.
Oh, yeah.
Right, that explains that. We haven't had anything to do with her for a while, so now we know. The next one would be the PCSO, Kate Richards. As you can see, she's not here tonight either. She came to the Parish Council meeting last time. And I don't think we got a report, did we?
No, I chased, I asked whether she was coming, and I asked twice whether she could send a report, but I've had nothing back.
Okay, that's unfortunate. She is on restricted duties though. She had an accident outside work, an injury accident outside work some months ago, and it's left her in a not very good state. So, you know, we've not been getting, no fault of hers, we've not been having the service we used to have. The other thing worth saying, just while we're talking about the police, and then you will know, a reorganisation of neighbourhood policing, which means at our level, has been under consideration for some time, and I mean years. It's expected to be finally adopted this summer. And since there aren't any policemen here, I will say that their speed of reorganisation and their speed of doing some other things seem to have a similarity. This has been enormously slow. But anyhow, it is coming, supposedly in the summer. It's being consulted at the minute internally over, you know, all the staff rooms. We don't know the detail. We have some sort of, impressions. We believe it's going to result in more police constables and less PCSOs being attached to local areas like this. It'll all still come under the Community Safety Unit in Ashford, but we think that they're going to move the emphasis a little bit away from PCSOs to PCs. Some of the PCSOs have been getting promoted, as it were, to PCs, or they're going to the other grade. Some have been deciding to go, some of course just retire or leave, go to do other things, and there will be more PCs. So that will bring advantages in some ways. They'll have more powers, they'll have more training, but they also may have greater duties that drag them away from the rural area. We have to see how that works. So that's all that I can really say about the police. Now, turning to my report for the Parish Council, the equivalent to the 2 you've already heard, let me first introduce our Parish Councillors. Sue Mash over here. She's had decades of service to the Council, and she also used to be a school governor to 2 schools, I think, and she was also on the Outlook committee in the past. Paul Venning here, he came on at the same time as me in 2011. Alan Lloyd Smith here, who some of you will have known in his previous career, January 2017. Colin, also January 2017. Leslie, who's not here tonight, she's abroad, came on in February 2018, and she was also elected as the Vice Chairman. And Sam, at the end there, came on in May 2021. Now, I'm grateful to all of you, them, as it were. It's an unpaid and a voluntary service to our community. It involves far more time and problems than any of us would have dreamed of before we embarked on it. So thank you very much. Before I go on to the next thing, let me just pick up what Mick asked me to do, which is an explanation of Stodmarsh, because this is having a big effect on Ashford. It's a bit technical, and it's totally understood that people don't really often have much idea what we're talking about. Stodmarsh is an area northeast of Canterbury, long way from here, not in Ashford. and it is a marshland. I think maybe about a square mile or something like that. It's quite big. And it is very important nature habitat. It's got designations under the old European rules, which still apply in Britain after Brexit. It's a special area of conservation, a special protection area for birds. It's a Ramsar site, which is under an international convention for, I think, visiting wading birds that migrate. It will no doubt be a site of special scientific interest and anything else you can think of. It's alphabet soup. It's really, really important where it comes to nature conservation. And the water for that marsh comes from the Great Stour, which flows in effect through it. Now, the reason it's the sort of marsh it is because in terms of the sort of soil quality, the nutrient value of the soil, it is really, really poor. And so only certain things grow there, like certain sorts of reeds, don't ask me what, but reeds and things like that is what it's covered in. And it's great for certain insects, birds, little mammals and all the rest of it. Now, because of all the building in Ashford, a lot of water from the sewage farms, having been treated in the sewage farms, is then discharged into the Great Stour, which is as it should be. All sewage farms discharge into streams or rivers or the sea once it's been treated. And what they have to do, the sewage farms, is to take out all the biological nasties, the bugs. But what they do not do is take out nitrates and phosphates. Phosphates come particularly from soap powder and stuff like that. Nitrates come from, I don't know what, also farm runoff into the river. Phosphates also come from the farms in some cases. And as that goes down the river, Stodmarsh, instead of being a very low nutrient area, becomes a higher nutrient area because the nitrates and the phosphates are like fertiliser. So all sorts of things are growing and outcompeting the reeds. And that stops the birds and the bees and all the other insects and the little mammals, which the area was designated for. And what's then happened, just bringing this all to an end, is that Natural England, which is the government's advisor on nature conservation, has said stop. And they've given a formal legal notice to Ashford and to Canterbury, and I think maybe a bit of Maidstone, to say you may not give planning permission for any more houses at all where the sewage from them would go to a sewage farm which then went into the Great Stour or its tributaries until you found an answer to get rid of the nitrates and the phosphates. And Ashford is trying to find a way of doing that with the others. It is slow, it's expensive, takes a lot of time to figure out how to do it and where to do it. They've got to buy land probably, and even when they do, it might take 2 or 3 years before it has any impact. And the difficult thing from Ashford's point of view, let's look at it parochially, is that most of the places they expected to build their houses in the next 5 years were around the middle of Ashford, all of which goes to the sewage farm or farms around Ashford that go into the Great Stour. And they've had to just put a block on all those proposals. And then the government gives Ashford a kick saying, you're not building the number of houses that you said you would. And Ashford says to the government, well, that's because your advisor on nature conservation has told us we're not allowed to. Just good. Yeah. So that's the, I'm sorry it's a long explanation, but that's what it is. If you hear about Stodmarsh, that's what Rick was talking about. Okay, let's move on then. Planning matters. The big things in Wittersham in the last year have concerned 3 major site applications: the Lloyd's Farmhouse or Lloyd's Green, Poplar Road or the Meadows, whichever you want to call it, and Stocks Road. Now the Lloyd's Farmhouse, it was a bare outline application for 23 houses accessed via a widened lane almost opposite the shop, if you remember that, some of you. The PC, the Parish Council, held a public session on the scheme. We objected strongly. The Borough Council planners at Ashford turned it down. But then it went to appeal. The Parish Council objected strongly again, and the appeal was rejected, happily. Rather bizarrely, for anyone who knows Poplar Road there well, KCC Highways had felt that the new access would be all right, which we certainly didn't, even with the parking opposite. And we asked Mike to appeal to them to say, can you please reconsider it because it's not a good idea. Mike went and did that, thank you very much. Actually, they still sided with the development and said it was all right, but luckily the inspector agreed with us. So that was all right, and you know, it was the right answer in the end. It may still come back again, you can never be sure, but at the minute it's been written off. Now, Poplar Road is an application for 7 houses, with no affordable housing included, no financial contribution towards community interests because it's less than half a hectare, I think the rule is. The Parish Council objected to it. Ashford failed to decide the application in the due time, and so they appealed to the inspectors at the government end for being out of time. Ashford then did give their decision on it, which they have to for the inspector, which was to refuse, I'm glad to say. We certainly objected again. The appeal is now almost a year old and there's no news of a decision. Hopefully it will get refused, but we can't be sure. Third one is Stocks Road. That was an application for 30 houses and bungalows, 12 of them affordable. Parish Council supported the application. Ashford planners were minded to refuse it, and it was passed to the planning committee for their decision last June. Greg, who's at the back there, he was heard by the committee objecting to the application. I appeared to give the Parish Council's view in support. The committee then deferred its decision and asked for the developers to discuss it further with planners with a view to reaching a scheme that they could agree, and that process is ongoing and I don't know where it has got to. Other planning issues, just in summary, the Parish Council considered 26 applications. We supported 15, we objected to 3, we commented on 4 without giving them a yes or no, and 4 still outstanding. There were 2 earlier appeals that I've already mentioned, 1 refused and 1 awaited. The Ashford planners granted 19, 1 was withdrawn and 6 decisions awaited. So, you know, that's the usual thing. I think it's perhaps useful for you to know that most applications go forward with the Parish Council supporting them, and I think you would say that most applications go through the borough with approval. There's, you know, most of them get approved, some get rejected or revised. Turning on to events, a Jubilee oak was planted in the lower end of the cemetery by Bishop Rose on her visit to Wittersham before the Chapel Bank pilgrimage a few months ago. The Ewe and Lamb pub sign was restored, complete with a new post, thanks to Greg Panoya and Kate Miller, both sitting at the back, for all their work to deliver this project. Paul Stern for refurbishing the wrought iron work, Tim Piper for bringing his telelifter to erect the new post and sign. It all went very well, and thanks to everyone else who helped in that project, which is looking brilliant. Commemorative mugs for the Platinum Jubilee were presented to all the children at the school by myself on behalf of the Parish Council, following a great suggestion to us from Miriam Lewis, who said we ought to do that, and I think that was brilliant, and it went really well. Thanks, Miriam. The pop-up cafe and information hub that used to be run by Action with Communities in Rural Kent, that was mentioned earlier, they added Wittersham to the rota during 2022, and they came once a month and parked on the village green off of Jubilee Field and provided coffee and cake and tea to anyone who went along, and would also be able to offer information on how people could get services and solve problems. A sort of mobile mini citizens' advice, if you like. They made several very successful calls from April to November. It was funded by the lottery. Thanks to Leslie Brown, who's not here tonight, and Mick here, for bringing that to Wittersham, both of them moonlighting as trustees of ACRK. Mick for many years in that capacity, and also Paul has been a trustee of ACRK for probably about 8-9 years now. Regrettably, as you heard from Mick, ACRK is now being wound up after funding shortfalls, partly precipitated by the withdrawal of the annual subventions from KCC. Mike here has explained how over recent years the situation in KCC has been just getting tougher and tougher, and they did stop. They withdrew some of their funding and then they withdrew the rest, and well, most of the rest. And unfortunately, it wasn't only that, by the way, it's not all down to KCC by any means, but that plus other issues, I'm afraid, did them over. And that, by the way, ACRK covered the whole of Kent, or Kent and Medway, as we have to say now, because Medway's separate. As well as the pop-up cafe, ACRK ran housing, village hall and other community advisory services. They had been going in one guise or another for about 99.5 years. And I'm involved in efforts with the national organisation, Action with Communities in Rural England, and CALC, that's the Kent Association of Local Councils, to try and see those services reinstated under a new structure. There are discussions going on with Kent up at Roger Goff's level, the leader, and with officers. I've been in to see the leader and the chief executive of Ashford Borough, who also hear, of course, from Mick, because he was a trustee, and we're seeing what can be done. Highways and public rights of way. Highways improvement plan proposal's been agreed for submission to Kent County Council, with a number of items to discuss with them. This is the first submission we have made, but other parishes in Ashford have reported, it would be fair to say, deep dissatisfaction with the process. I think part of what happened here, Mike, is that the HIP was sort of invented on the fly in a highway seminar when, I'm trying to think of his first name, Simon Jones came, and he explained to us how he felt that parishes should explain what they wanted to see, and Kent could then consider them and do what people wanted most. And people took that as being a brilliant idea, and circumstances have intervened, and lack of money and all the rest of it, maybe lack of staff. So actually it's now very difficult to get things through. And it would be wrong of me to say that people are overjoyed by it. It's not working very well from the parish's point of view, but on the other hand, it may be working as well as it can from Kent's point of view. You know, it's the usual irresistible force and immovable object. Anyway, we'll see how we get on when we put ours in. We know KCC will only investigate projects if they're paid to do so by the parish council. We've discussed that here last year. And it may be that they'll only take on one suggestion each year. And we're not sure yet how that will work. I'm hoping that what they will do is discuss with us our several suggestions and then agree with us which one it would be useful for them to look at. Because if we can only suggest one and then they say no, we're not really making much progress. You know, we need to try and work together with them and with their officers and experts, you know, engineers and all the rest of it. We've got 8 on our list for preliminary discussion, although some of them do interlink. And just so that you know what we are putting forward, it's the footway near the hairdresser's shop, which is presently grass, but we want tarmac. It's having white gateways, as they call them, on the B2082 at each end of the village. You see them with other villages, they have sort of wooden gateway by the 30 limit that just draws people's attention to the fact they're going into a 30 limit. The SID pole in Swan Street, that SID is the speed indicator device. We've got one near the pub, we've got one up near the Memorial Garden, we've got one down near the church, but we always wanted one in Swan Street, and when we agreed the project with KCC, they said we couldn't have it, and we really want to have another go about that and understand better either understand better why we really, really can't, or ideally persuade them. Because speeding in Swan Street is quite a problem. Horses warning signs in Peening Quarter Road, where there are quite a number of horses that do go up and down the top end, and it's bendy. So not very good visibility to come up behind a horse. 40-mile-an-hour limit on part of Peening Quarter Road. You've been involved in that. We took that. You took that very kindly to the engineers, and they refused it. The reason I think we need to have another go is that was before 40 and 50 limits popped up like a rash all over this part of Kent, and some of them objectively have got a less good case than we have, because we've got a bendy road, we've got a hill, and we've got a lot of houses. Some of them are wider roads, straight, no houses, and they still go 40. So, you know, we will make that point and they will tell us whether they're willing. The footway, from the one way or another, from the bus shelter towards Hillview Garage and Mill House, one side of the road or the other. Extending the 30-mile-an-hour limit east on Stocks Road towards Acton Lane, ideally even past Acton Lane, but at least in that direction, because at the moment the 30 only starts really quite close into the centre of the village. And a chicane on Stocks Road would be perfect, but I dare say we won't get it, but we can at least ask. They do have them in some villages. Okay, potholes, continue to be a serious issue everywhere. They're not being filled within the target times. I mean, that's just a plain fact, 28 days and it doesn't happen. We understand how difficult it is. We don't appreciate the fact that it's difficult. A very dangerous cluster by the Swan remain unmarked and unfilled 7 weeks after I reported them. It leaves a potentially serious accident risk for a cyclist or motorcyclist in the dark on an unlit road and a double bend. They are very, very severe holes in the middle, just on the bend, and they're also very sharp. They've got a flat bottom and a cliff at each end, about 2 inches deep. The cyclist, I think, would come straight off if they happened to hit them in the middle of the road and a car coming along behind could drive over them. But it's 7 weeks and they're not marked up. Funny thing is that another hole a few feet away suddenly got marked up and filled about a week ago, and not as dangerous.
Chairman, I mean, if there's a real problem, you know, that you're worried about, please send me an email, because I mean, I have intervened on a number of occasions, particularly in Tenterden, where we had a disaster with East Cross, as you know,
Oh, I know.
and managed to get it repaired. But you know, if there's something, I mean, I can't act at every pothole, but if there's something that's really worrying,
These ones are bad.
please let me know.
Yeah. And I did make clear how I did feel they were dangerous. I should say, in all fairness to that unit and to Mike, when we were struggling with the water leaks in the summer last year, they were throwing up potholes, and on a couple of occasions I rang the emergency officer on a Sunday morning, and on one occasion I rang them that morning and they'd got someone out taking action later on the Sunday, and then they kicked Southern Water, who were saying, oh, we'll get to it in a week, and they actually did do something. So, you know, it is possible, and I understand they're very overwhelmed, but at the same time, you know, they are falling below what they really have to try and do. I would say, though, all credit to the KCC reporting tool online, which is excellent. You know, I find that it really is helpful. If only the repair needs that are reported were then followed up. But the tool is good. And I would urge anybody, if you've got problems with the lights not working, or the potholes, or something else goes wrong, Kent Highways reporting tool in Google takes you straight to it, and then you can report whatever you've got. You can mark it on a map, you can tell them the address or whatever suits. And it's very good. A floating bridge on AT82, which is a PROW, public right-of-way, between the New Forge and the Orchard, has been repaired. A high stile on AT286 across the Black Brook has been replaced by gate. Problems on the AT80 are not are not yet allocated to an officer, as they are said to be complicated. But we do get on very well with the PROW units in general. Efforts to start, this is miscellaneous now, efforts to start a speed watch group appear not yet to have borne fruit. Martin Chambers, who's not here tonight, is looking for volunteers, or he was. Land at the bottom of the cemetery was cleared and levelled, looking a lot better. A gap in the churchyard perimeter wall was secured with park fencing to match that existing between the churchyard and the school playing field. A request to ABC to consider transferring land on Poplar Field, the village green, and possibly more of it, to the PC remains under consideration by Ashford. And it was noticed that they've just made some improvements to the play area in the last week or two out of the blue, which is appreciated. A project to renovate and or refurbish the bus shelters being designed and costed by Greg and another person who came to our last meeting, and I'm outstanding to talk to him and go and look at it and see what he's uncovered in his examination of what the structure of the shelter's like at the moment. We know it's in poor shape, but some of it might be reusable. The KCC library van is relocated to the bottom of Forge Meads, and is obviously now about to unrelocate. New readers are very welcome, otherwise the service might be withdrawn. It's always a little bit on teaching. The weekly coffee shop in the village hall has restarted. Used to be in here on Tuesdays, it's now on Thursdays, 10 o'clock till 12, every week. Calm, which is CA Romney Marsh, Caring All Together on Romney Marsh. They started doing it on the first and third Thursdays, and they're carrying on doing that. That's been very successful. But now the parish council will take the second week. Jean Elliott and Judy Darkins will do the fourth, and the Women's Institute or the parish council will pick up the fifth as and when they arise, which is only occasionally. The parish council's takings for the coffee, which is £1, go to the local Jerry Greenland Charitable Trust in Wittersham, which is for the sport of needy villagers in Wittersham. And that's a charity. Finance, subscriptions and donations. A budget was agreed for next year, 2023-24, which is £35,000, which means that the council tax for the Wittersham Parish Council should be the same as the current year, give or take a penny either way. I hope it's only a penny. Won't be many pennies, but I hope none. Which will keep the council tax, yes, the same as at present. Cemetery fees went up by 15% after the previous increase, which was 7 years ago. Wittersham fees remain lower than many others, but we do charge more for non-residents, which is common, or non-ex-residents, or whatever you say. Parish Council paid for first aid training for all children at the school a few weeks ago. Other subscriptions and donations that we've made were to the Kent Association of Local Councils, Action with Communities in Rural Kent before they went bust, Kent County Playing Fields Association, the Weald of Kent Preservation Society, which is these people, the Institute of Cemetery and Crematorium Management, because we are a burial authority in Wittersham. There's only a limited number of parishes that are burial authorities, but we are one, and Yvonne is the skilled and experienced burials officer, but not digger. Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal, the Kent, Surrey and Sussex Air Ambulance, which is also on the agenda tonight, and the Outlook on Oxney, the magazine that you all get. It comes to you free, but that's because our parish council and Stone Parish Council pay for it. And finally, lots of people I want to thank for all their help during the year. First, all our unpaid volunteers, Lexi Datta, who's not here, and her team, for doing the gardening at the Triangle, and also taking over the War Memorial Garden after Jean Elliott and the Women's Institute had to give it up. They give such a good impression of the village to passers-by. Hilary Pettifer and her team for gardening in the Memorial Gardens and for dealing with the unruly hedge from the street along to the old jail, which has finally been reopened. It's finally reopened as a way to push chairs and is much, much safer. Paul Stern, who repaired the Lich Gate at the churchyard at no cost to the council. Chris Teasdale, our tree warden. The various volunteer litter pickers who pick up in their areas unbidden. David Chesson for continuing as our internal auditor. And then all my councillor colleagues who, as I said at the start, put in far more time and effort than you would expect in the sometimes thankless task of keeping the council running so it can take on all the responsibilities and other jobs you've heard about tonight. Which leaves us with our minute number of paid staff who do all the heavy lifting. Alf Mather sitting in the front there, our village caretaker for the 4 villages, whose costs are almost entirely met by ABC and KCC for looking after their interests. And then most of all, as my councillor colleagues are very aware, Yvonne Osborne, our clerk, whose official title is proper officer. That's a legal title, by the way, it's not one we made up. And responsible finance officer, who keeps a diligent grip on all council business, correspondence, finances and Alf, day in, day out, carrying out the instructions of the council and answering questions or concerns from residents, and all of it taking far longer than the 12.5 hours she is paid for per week. And that's all I've got to say on the report. I'll come back on drainage issues, but as far as the parish is concerned, that's it. So please ask anything if you have anything, or if you say, "Edods, we're off." Kate.
I'm sure you don't really want to do this, but you know that if you look up Wittersham on the internet, there's a slightly out-of-date picture of it, which includes a market held in the village hall and a couple of other items which are about 3 or 4 years out of date.
Yeah. I'm sorry to say I hadn't thought about it. I'm not surprised. There of course will be various things mentioning it, and some of them are difficult to get at, but you're right that it will be out of date. Yes.
Does anybody know how you get it right?
Is this in the parish council?
It will depend where it sits.
If it's ours, then yes, it's down to me. I will have to look at it again.
Okay.
We control our own website, but there will be others that are Google picking them up from other places.
Is it just when you search on Google, Wittersham or Wittersham?
I forgot what. Wikipedia. Wikipedia.
Ah,
it's
okay.
the Wikipedia entry.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone can edit Wikipedia.
In theory, I think you can, so long as the other editors
did
accept it.
In case it was a parish council issue.
It's something to think about. Okay, thank you. Others? Greg?
Yes, on planning, it does occur to me, I wonder if you agree that the bottleneck for Ashford on approval of housing caused by the Studmarsh problem is putting undue or even perhaps unreasonable pressure on planning applications which aren't in the Stour catchment area, of which we're part.
There's no question that that is entirely logical and was the immediate fear. As far as I can see, which isn't very far from our little corner here, it doesn't seem to have happened. And I think that's partly explained by the fact that there's this kind of unholy balance or something where Ashford wanted to put their houses, which they presently can't, was in the area between the 2 AONBs. If they can't put them there because of Studmarsh, then that drives them in the direction of the 2 AONBs, which they do generally give a lot of respect to. Therefore, they're between the devil and the deep blue sea, as it were. They're caught both ways. There's a strange thing about the AONB, which others, Miriam certainly for one, will know far more about than I do. But the AONB does not prevent development. It means development must be considered carefully within certain parameters. And certainly councils do build in the AONB. I mean, we have it a bit in the AONB, but Ashford does not seem to go wholesale there like some others do. And there really you come to the very point about the 30 houses in Stocks Row. I think some councils would have said, fair enough, we'll have it. especially in the circumstances you mentioned, Ashford has tended to cavil at that all the time. I think something may go through, but it's certainly not been easy, despite the pressure they're under. Where that gets to, by the way, Mick will know more about it, but I'm sure Ashford is under great pressure coming from the government because they're not making their numbers.
Can I just add a bit to that, please? Regarding the Stodmarsh problem, an application can be put in for buildings, a site within the Stodmarsh area. It goes through all the round validation and everything else. Give them permission if it's so designed, or if it fails, then it doesn't matter. But if it gets permission and is then put on hold and put in what is commonly known as the Stodmarsh pen. No,
you got it right.
Until such time as the mitigation is achieved, which Jeremy has explained, I knew he would, in much better detail than I ever could. So you can go and ask for permission to build some houses and get it, but you can't actually build them.
Yes.
So yes, people are getting fed up with that, so they go and look elsewhere, of course. But the inspectors are getting a bit aware of this, and sort of saying no, you can't use Stodmarsh as a reason for going for appeal. Well, you can, but they won't accept, a good reason for it.
There was, just before going to Miriam, there was the case which Mike knows very well because he lives right next door to it, of the Waits site in Tenterden,
Yes.
which Ashford was against very strongly. It went to appeal and it got consented by the inspector for a large number of houses. Now, Tenterden is not in the AONB. The AONB, when it was defined, curls around the border of Tenterden. It also does the same with Heathfield, Crowborough and one other. There are towns that were particularly carved out. And so, that was a case, again, where Ashford didn't accept those Waits houses, but the inspector gave it anyway.
And one of the reasons the inspector gave was the Stodmarsh factor.
He did,
As
the
in
numbers.
Ashford were not able to build out its required number of houses. Therefore, we should have a new site. Much to the irritation of all of us, particularly me, to hide my house. But
Happens to anybody, obviously.
No.
Miriam?
I mean, that what Mike's saying is absolutely correct. That was the only reason why that development went through in Tenterden, was because Ashford weren't meeting their targets.
Yeah.
And he viewed that as a sustainable location for housing. Goodness knows how he could do that, but he did.
Yeah.
And I understand that Ashford tried for judicial review, but that was thrown out in terms that there wasn't strong enough grounds to have a review of that decision. So absolutely, the Stodmarsh is having an impact on this area. In terms of the AONB, I think what we've got to look at very carefully is actually the inspector's decision at Poplar Road. And I think you're wrong to say that the inspector supported the parish council's view in terms of the access. No, the reason why the inspector turned down Poplar Road was for two main reasons. The first was the impact upon the AONB, and the second was that he found it to be a major site, and he found that 23 houses in Wittersham was not sustainable. So that brings us to the question that if the inspector has found 23 houses to be unsustainable, how can the parish council support 30? How can 30 be sustainable when 23 has been deemed by the inspector to be unsustainable, and Ashford Borough Council and the AONB unit have identified serious damage to the AONB by building on the Stocks Road field site? So I think we should be learning some lessons from what the inspector has said in the context of our village, both in terms of the AONB and our sustainability. We all know our sewage system is absolutely dire.
Seems to be coming on to that.
The surface drainage is absolutely dire. The bus service is, well, if you're relying on it for work, it's pretty hopeless. There isn't a lot of employment in the village. The school can't really take any more pupils. So, I mean, we are unsustainable, and that has been shown. So, I personally do not think the parish council should be supporting 30 houses in those circumstances. I definitely support a small development for affordable houses for local people, 100%, but not 30 houses destroying a medieval field which has been in farming since medieval times and is a key component of that AONB. So I would hope that the parish council might reconsider in the light of the decision on the Poplar Road development.
Thank you. You're certainly right that what you say about the inspector at Poplar Road, Poplar Farm. Poplar Road, Poplar Farm. The decision on the 23 being major is exactly what he did. That, of course, was after the other one had been passed through and was waiting in abeyance at Ashford. You're right to say that he didn't find against it on highways grounds. My personal view stroke hope is that he also recognised the highway problem but didn't need to take it on and set himself against KCC highways. So, you know, I would suggest politically he had no need to go there.
Well, I'm not sure
Since
that's
he went to
entirely
visit it,
correct.
I can't actually believe. Since he went to visit it, I can't believe he didn't think it was a problem. But we don't actually know
But he
that.
did actually, the other thing that he did refuse it on was the impact on the listed building. So he did put in all the reasons for refusal,
Oh yeah.
but
Except
missed
that
out
one.
that highway
Oh, except
stuff.
that
So
one, yeah.
if he only needed one, he
No.
may as well just
No.
have gone for the OMB,
Yeah.
but he
We
didn't.
went on highways. We went on the listed building. Ashford went on the AONB essentially. And Kent Highways said the highway part was all right.
Well, I mean, I think we all know that the highways isn't all right,
Yeah,
but
they definitely
what
are.
actually defeated the application
Yeah.
was essentially that impact on the OMB.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm not.
And the fact that the village is not sustainable for 23 houses, which I
Okay.
think we all know.
I hear what you say. Thank you. Where did we get to? Other points on the Wittersham report? Otherwise, as Kate rightly said, I'll just have a few words about drainage.
Well, I'd just like to ask what's happening to the cemetery. It seems absolutely years since the parish council put in planning permission to extend the cemetery at quite considerable cost, getting the land cleared. What is happening with that?
Due soon.
Why have we been delayed all these years?
Doing it. You can accuse us of a bottleneck, me in particular.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go on, Kevin. Does everybody realise that Kevin is the publican at the Swan?
Is the village looking to grow or stagnate?
Stagnate.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bad thing.
And I think it's a listen. I mean, I'm only a visitor here, but I get the feeling that nobody wants the village to grow. You need to grow to survive.
Well,
And unless we grow, you'll die. I see it in the village. I've lived in another village, and I look around the room, and without being rude, the vast majority of these people in the room are older than me. I feel you're in here tonight, and I'm in my 60s, and I'm not being rude there. That's what I see, and I just think that the village needs to grow and attract more young people. Otherwise, it'll die, and that's how I see it. We don't have a bus service. I think it's abysmal. But I do think that there's, you can keep going around in circles. I don't know about the sewerage. I'm sure I'm going to listen to it now, but
eagerly.
Yeah. But the one thing I notice living here is, the lack of young people. We seem to either have children, nippers, or old people. We don't seem to have anybody in between. I relate to the rat catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. He seems to have been around and captured them all. So, I just feel that, do you want to grow or do you want to stagnate?
I think you put a very important point, one that we can't solve tonight, debating it, I'm sure, and that there will be, it's not merely two views, it's nuances on all the views and nuances on the nuances, so that it's a bit like the old saying, you know, of someone saying, God make me chaste but not just yet. You know, everyone wants some kind of a middle way, which is quite hard to create. Yes, we do want a more mixed demographic. We could do with people who are working, but as Miriam has already said, working outside the village unless they're working at home. No reason why they can't work at home now. We've got very, very good broadband in the village, finally. But at least in the village, not where Alan lives in the sticks, where it doesn't work at all. The mixed demographic is hard to achieve. These things, they come by osmosis. They're not created by, you know, dint of human intervention, short of building houses. And Miriam has a perfectly valid point on the building houses. It's not the only point. And we come down to this push-shove each way of, do we have more affordables? Do we have more market houses that pay for the affordables? Do we not? What about this? What about that? Is the school full or empty? If the school loses the role, they could close. At the same time, if they're really doing well as they are at the minute, they can't take people. As soon as the children grow up a bit, they need some coming in. And they don't only come from Wittersham, they come from Appledore, from Stone, from wherever. Very popular school. Thank you.
Mr. Chen, can I make a
Yeah,
point?
go on,
Just
please.
to reflect what Kevin said, I think you find there are a substantial number of people in the village who don't want to see it stagnate, and I speak for all parish councillors.
I don't think anybody wants to see the village stagnate. It's just the growth has to be controlled. So we cope with the growth and we don't ruin the environment in what we plan. I don't think anybody says that we should stagnate. I mean, all these children have got parents, believe it or not. You know, I'm not sure exactly the demographics of the villages. It might be slightly skewed towards the older ones. I don't have the figures. But we've definitely got quite a lively group of young parents because I'm involved with a lot of them at the football club. So I know they're there. They may not get involved and come to parish council meetings, but they're keen on their village, they like their village, they want to stay in their village. And you know, I don't think anybody wishes it to stagnate. You know, we wish your pub well, and we're looking forward to getting food at the pub. Yes. And we'll be down there. But I can see how you want a few more customers, and that's always an argument for more housing to support village services. And you know, the pub is a good case in point. I mean, the school might be full and our sewage system might be, you know, more than capacity, but I'm sure your pub could do with some more customers. But I believe the village as it stands should be able to sustain that pub if people, you know, came along.
No, it wasn't about the pub.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a fair point. The pub, I mean, we don't want to lose our pub. We fought hard to get a pub and we're absolutely delighted when it was a pub. No,
it wasn't that. I was just, the feeling I get is that nobody
wants
to
stagnate. You misunderstood what I'm saying. That is not
Yeah.
what I'm saying at all. At all.
Okay. Can I move on to sewage? Drainage. Okay, just quickly then. This is the last item apart from. I mean, we've been having open forum really as we've been going along, but. I just wanted to raise this. Foul water drainage, Miriam has started to make my point for me. Foul water drainage in the village centre, and I stress it's the centre because outside the centre everyone's on their own arrangements. But in the centre, via the drains and the sewers, it's a regular concern of residents focused on blockages and consequent overflows of foul water into gardens and public spaces. And it is a problem, no question. I've been in discussion with Southern Water on the contribution to this problem that comes from disposal to the sewer of inappropriate materials, such as wood pulp and similar, used for babies' nappies and other sanitary products, wet wipes, cosmetic cleaning pads, Q-tips and similar. They all contribute to blockages and are not suitable for disposal by flushing, even if they say biodegradable. Biodegradable is misunderstood. It means it will degrade in landfill over a few years or tens of years. It does not biodegrade in the next few hours or minutes in the sewer. It just blocks it up. Fats, oils and greases, especially from the kitchen sink, form a deadly duo with the items like the ones I've already mentioned to make blockages impermeable to sewage and harder to clear, leading to inevitable overflows into the streets or the gardens. Whatever we think about the state of the sewers, their capacity compared to our increased generation of foul water from bathing, washing clothes and dishes, etc., and what Miriam said is right. This major contribution to our collective unpleasant problem comes from misbehaviour by residents. In other words, the sewers may be over capacity or not, and I think they're probably, edging it in places, but it's these periodic blockages by stuff that shouldn't be in there which leads it to actually overflow. Sewers work on a gradient, a hill, and if you block it here and the sewer goes like that, it'll find the first manhole it can and pop out. And that's where we get our problems from, blockages and overflows. So, I've spoken to Southern Water about them supporting a local campaign with statistics. I've had some of them supplied to me before, messaging, etc., posters or whatever. And I wonder how best to manage this to best effect to try and get the message across to people in the village that are unwittingly, let's say, causing the problem that they then complain about. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the sewers, I'm saying that a substantial contribution to the problems is coming from what I've just listed. And incidentally, where people can all say it wasn't me, it was them, it was whoever, a lot of the blockages they come out to are actually in the drain beneath the householder's garden before it gets to the sewer. So we know that where it's come from. It can only come from one place. Now, Southern Water are quite willing. They come out and they give a half hour free without charging, which is very good of them. They don't have to. But really, we are between us all in the centre of the village. We're all causing our own problem. To let's say, maybe it's 30% or maybe it's 50% of the problems. There's a lot of them. So the question is how we go about trying to get this message across, especially in the hot spots. For instance, down at, and I usually remember his name, down Swan Street, right down near the bends.
Miles and Dan.
There's a sharp corner in the sewer there, and it's down a long hill. So if there's ever a blockage, that's where it blocks, up it comes. And it's come from anywhere in this end of the village. There are others, but that's one of the famous ones. Another one is down the street by
The
Lee House, by Nicholas.
The Lee House.
By Lee House, yeah, near there, and the Lunds, as Yvonne said.
This is where it pops up.
So what do we do to try and get this message across successfully to our residents to please stop chucking wet wipes down the toilet or sanitary products or babies' nappies? It's, once upon a time, the babies' nappies were marketed on it's so easy, you just flush them away. Well, they don't do that anymore, to be fair, but people have still got the message. Even the wet wipes, the things for taking cosmetics off the face, if you're a lady, not me, and the eye makeup and all that, none of them can go safely down toilets. What they do say is the 3 Ps, poo, pee, paper. Toilet paper, they mean.
We
Not
could ask
newspaper.
for a weekly waste removal. The trouble is with nappies and incontinence products that they sit in the bin for 2 weeks.
Yes, it's a 2-weekly collection. If it's certain products that are medically linked, they can be collected on the clinical rounds, which the council provides. Ashford will provide a clinical round for certain medical things. And I'm not sure if incontinence pads would fall into that or not, probably not. But yes, they go in all of that should go in the black bin. And, these things are as they are. We have a dog, all the mess from the dog goes in plastic bags in the black bin. It's doable. Unsavoury, but it's doable. Sam?
I was just going to say, having only lived here 4 years, my husband cleared our drains outside of the back courtyard more times than he would care to. He gets his rods out and he particularly job he hates, but we've got 2 houses that run through and they kind of know really what they should or shouldn't be putting down. But it gets blocked from a few face wipes or biodegradable face wipes or tissues rather than toilet paper because they don't break down as well. So I do think it's an education, you know, just for the ones that are unwittingly doing that. You know, we don't put nappies down in the bin because they're not taken for a while, but we know it's coming from our 2 neighbours. So, you know, we've tried to
There's only
say,
3 of you.
yeah, exactly, say in the nicest way. But if that's just 2 people or just 1 person and that's blocking our... And so whether it's something through the school, in the newsletter, Mr Hawkins is fabulous with his newsletters, the magazine. I think it's just all leaflets through the door, just make it really simple of what can go down and what shouldn't.
What I'm conscious of, that's absolutely right, Sam, what I'm conscious of is that this message is on the bill every time it comes, if you get a written bill. But I don't read that written bill, you know, the leaflet any more than anyone else does.
Maybe add to the visual.
Visual, I think. One idea I had, but I'm not sure that it's really the right time, is we've been invited to have a stall at the coronation fete on the Sunday, and I wondered about whether to put some signs up there.
I think you can have a toilet pan. And again, what you should put down. I think the king would be thrilled.
Have a toilet pan, yes, I could be like Elon Musk.
Contest to throw the stuff in.
Okay.
Does not southern water itself, does southern water not itself
can we just listen to Miriam?
Doesn't southern water itself, I mean, it's their problem really to solve. I mean, I know we're responsible for it, but do they not provide leaflets, education programmes? I think it's not the job for the parish council here. I mean, it's good you're thinking about doing this, but I would say that responsibility is with Southern Water to use some of their resources to educate people, because it's in their best interest as well as ours.
You're entirely right, and they put the stuff in the bills.
But that's not working, so
I'm conscious of the fact it doesn't work, and we have our own way of getting at villagers, whether it be in Outlook, which is possible, whether it be on Nextdoor, whether it be through public meetings. I mean, we've had a good turnout tonight, better than I expected, but it's still only 15 or so, or 20. We've got 1,000 people in the village. Well, you've got 500 adults.
Well, maybe the feedback needs to go to Southern Water to say your campaigns are not working.
They're quite keen to work with us. I mean, in the discussions I've had, and provide us statistics. One of the interesting things from statistics, by the way, I expected, which is a bit unfair of me, that the problem would be Lloyd's Green, Forge Meads, Jubilee Fields, lots of children, if they're children anyway, you know. It's not. Proportionately, I'll tell you where it is, it's down Poplar Road, for instance. And I think that may be because Poplar Road is older and the sewers are older.
Yeah,
but,
that's
you know,
where it's collecting, so that's the argument, it's needing to upgrade the system.
Yeah, it's not evidence that, but it's an interesting correlation.
Where the blocking occurs.
Okay,
The sewers are probably newer on the estates, aren't they? It's where the old Victorian system is.
Greg?
Not wishing to prolong this any longer than we need to, I do agree with Miriam, and I must say that other water authorities are writing letters to all of their residents about this, and it appears at breakfast and you can read it and hand it to your partner.
It's when your brain
which is
blocks.
very different, about this problem. And it's, I must say, I think Southern Water probably should be invited to the fete themselves to set up a stall and would be taken in initiative. I really appreciate your initiative. I think you're absolutely right to get us all thinking about it, but I do think Southern Water have work to do here.
Fine.
Can I recommend a programme that's just been 2 episodes called Our Troubled Rivers or Our Troubled Waters with Paul Whitehouse? And he is passionate about keeping rivers clean because he's an angler, but he looks at what are some of the things, and it's not all human waste, that are going into rivers, and that might go into Outlook on Oxley. I don't know if it'll be available on catch up. It's been on recently. quite instructive.
Right, thank you.
Is it BBC?
No,
I don't know.
it's Channel 4, I think.
Okay, can I go now?
We are hopeful of having a stall at the Coronation Day fete, and as I see it, we've got quite a few organisations against it, and as I see it, the difficulty may be being able to display something with a bit of impact that's going to convince people of the merit of what we're trying to say.
A fact book.
Possibly, you could think about producing some sort of clever poster that we could put on the display panel, and I've got the display boards, and something with a bit of impact, or if indeed anybody else can think about putting together something that we could display. And
I think we can get posters from Southern Water if
yes,
we decide to go with that.
anything. We can put out more than one poster, of course. So any sort of impact statement would be helpful, actually.
Right.
Sam's got a spare toilet bowl. And she's there.
Can lend
Yes,
it for a game.
I've got a few
Sponsors sit.
Yes, indeed.
Fundraiser.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. You
Impact.
might have to have, do not
You're
use.
laughing,
but-
it's going to be there.
Right. Does anyone else on the public side have anything else they want to raise that we haven't sparked off from the various discussions in every direction? No? So are people happy if I close the annual parish meeting at this point? Thank you very much for coming. There's a bit more wine to have, but we will also then want to carry on with our parish council meeting, and you're very welcome to stay for it or go, according to whether you have interests on the agenda or not, or just do any other